Long-time baseball writer, baseball insider, always kind enough to join us here on the Sports Bash.
Veteran of the Veterans Stadium press box and the payphone in the back, the bad press meals on that fourth floor elevator that would get stuck.
Are these all accurate?
Sure.
I have ridden that elevator. I've been stuck on that elevator. I think that's what you're getting at, right, Pete?
Izzy was the guy that was the elevator operator.
Yeah, it's true.
Right.
Izzy was not the lone elevator operator. There was quite a succession of elevator operators. It's just a miracle that elevator ever went up and down and didn't go in other directions.
So true, Jay. So true.
Have you ever been on an elevator that went sideways before?
If you'd ever been on one, that would have been my bet.
Jayson Stark is with us here on the Sports Bash. And, Jay, before we get into the World Series, I really like to get your take on what the Phillies did yesterday. Real outside-the-box thinking here. I mean, this is an interesting hire for this franchise, number one. But, number two, for anybody, considering his one managerial stint did not go very well in terms of record. So were you, number one, surprised that this organization that has typically stayed in-house for their entire existence, it seems, went out and maybe got the most off-the-wall hire that you could think of?
You know, Mike, this is not your grandfather's Phillies. It's not even your father's Phillies. Things have changed, man. When I started to get a feel for the different candidates, I knew Gabe Kapler would be their pick. I knew that Gabe would come in there and dazzle them in the interview process. He's an incredibly bright guy. He's brilliant. He's got a presence to him. He thinks about the game and has always thought about the game. And I just knew that when you combine that with his background in two deeply analytic-driven organizations in Tampa Bay and L.A., that he was the perfect fit for what they were looking for. Now, I don't know that he's the perfect fit for this franchise going forward. We don't know because he's never managed. But he's a really fascinating choice.
Yes. I feel like that scene in Major League where the guy's jacking homers and they're like, this guy's great. How come no one else has picked up on him? All right, that's enough for the fastballs. Throw him the off-speed pitch. I mean, the fact that he's brilliant, he's very smart. By the way, he's a very good-looking man. They're going to have a lot of –
My girlfriend, that was her first comment. I say, she goes, honey, how about Gabe Kapler? I said, yeah, he's the new Phillies manager. I was on the golf course, but I got a tweet. And she says, he's hot. And I'm like, I'm standing right here.
Well, I mean, the fact that, it sounds like he's got everything going for him. How come no one else picked up on this guy?
All right, well, first off, all these photos of him that are floating around the internet and social media with no shirt on, they're not last week, okay? They were taken a while ago in a different lifetime. So let's clear that part up.
Okay.
Here is the deal. When the Dodgers decided that Don Mattingly wasn't coming back, or they mutually decided, or however we're describing that, Gabe was the number one choice of Andrew Friedman. And I think if it had been up to Andrew, he wouldn't even have interviewed another candidate. And the ownership group said, no, that's not how we do things around here. And then they interviewed like 17 candidates, whatever it was. And it really came down to Gabe and Dave Roberts. When you look at Dave Roberts' work, it's hard to say that was a mistake. But to say that no one else picked up on him, I would totally disagree on that. He was going to get a manager's job somewhere, sometime.
We know he was the runner-up for the Dodgers out there. And with this Phillies roster, Dusty had been the AAA manager, and many people thought that was just the natural progression. He knew a lot of these guys. So do you think it is, while it's an interesting and outside-the-box pick, do you think it's a good fit for this young roster that they are putting together?
All right, well, the fact that he's been in player development, I think, is what sealed the deal for this front office. But I don't know how to answer your question yet because we haven't seen him in this role in this city. The other thing about Gabe Kapler is he's intense, man, and it's relentless positive energy, so all that's good, but it's energy, and it's intense, and it never really wavers, and talking to people who know Gabe from his previous stops, I think that's their biggest concern. Somebody said to me, you look at the other managers that they brought in from the outside in Philadelphia, Charlie Manuel, Terry Francona, they both had a looser side, a lighter side, and it helped them take the edge off. But Gabe doesn't really have that. He's driven, and it'll be interesting to see how he handles Philly. Right? He has a lot of assistant managers that he hasn't met yet. So let's see how that part goes.
Oh, Philly is unique. We're talking with Jayson Stark. Now, Jayson, you said you knew they would hire him, but are people around baseball surprised that the Phillies went this route?
I don't think so. I haven't sensed that at all, Pete, because, just follow the bouncing ball. Since John Middleton really took over as the controlling owner. What has he demanded? What has he asked for? He hired a traditional baseball guy in Andy McPhail as the president of the team, but he wanted a data-driven general manager, and that's how Matt Klentak got there. And this is the kind of manager that he wanted. And they look at the teams in the World Series. What do you see? You see
bad bullpens.
Well, let's leave that for a second.
Analytics.
You see two teams that know how to look at a spreadsheet, right, and process information and pass it along to the manager, and hire a manager who can communicate it to everyone around him. And that's the blueprint here. I think knowing A.J. Hinch and Dave Roberts as well as I do, both those guys have a little bit of a softer side to them than Gabe Kapler does, but their hope is to follow the exact model of the teams in the World Series. Now, you get back to me in a few months or a year or 3 years, and we'll see if that's what they've got. But that's the blueprint anyway.
Right. We're talking with Jayson Stark here, the World Series tonight. The coverage begins at 7 o'clock on 97.3 ESPN. So when you look at the teams in the World Series and you see what the Phillies have, are they following the blueprint with their roster at least?
In some ways, both these teams are built around young players first and foremost, young rising stars.
Absolutely.
And we don't know that all these Phillies players are going to become rising stars. Rhys Hoskins has given us a glimpse of that. I don't know that anyone else has us sold on that part of it. And then, what they did when they got that part of the show together was go out and fit pieces by a trade, by free agency, by spending money. And, the Dodgers obviously spent a lot of money, like more money than any team's ever spent. But, the Astros didn't spend at all. At one point they had a team on the field a few years ago that was making under $20 million, the entire team. But now you look up, and that's not the case anymore. $122 million payroll going into the season. Add Justin Verlander, so that you bump that up another $20-something million, and that's really exactly what the Phillies have in mind. They've got so much money to spend, but they're waiting to spend it until they think they're ready to win.
All right, tonight we've had some really, I would say, entertaining games. I would say these games, if you stuck someone in front of the television and said, you've never watched baseball before, you'd put them in front of those games, they'd probably become a fan. But are we watching good baseball, Jayson?
Well, it's not perfect baseball. And I don't know how in the setting that that human beings find themselves in games like this, you can expect anyone to play perfect baseball. This has been a great World Series. You very rarely get two great teams like this. Right? It's been over 25 years since we had two 100-win teams in the World Series, and you're seeing why. But the other part of it is that the pitching staffs, the bullpens, they're exhausted, and so that's contributed obviously to some of this. But we've had 2 epic games and 5 really compelling, entertaining games, and that, I think, it's put this in position to be in the argument for best World Series of modern times. Now, in order to get there, alongside 2001, the Game 7, Luis Gonzalez hit off Mariano Rivera, alongside 1991, which ended with the Jack Morris, John Smoltz game, you've got to have an incredible, memorable grand finale. So that means either tonight or tomorrow night. But we're in the argument for that.
Jayson, we talked about how long you've covered the game, or we hinted at it a little bit. So do you like the style of play that we're seeing in this World Series, though? All the home runs, some of the over-managing, it seems, that depletes the pens, as we talked about. I mean, I would call you, I think it's a compliment, an old-school guy or a student of the game. But how about this style of play? And there's accusations or things out there on social media that, well, the ball's juiced because they're trying to drive up rays. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff out there. Do you like the style with all these home runs launching out?
Pete, I would just describe this as this is baseball in the 21st century. This is where it is. This is where it's going, and we all need to get used to it. Now, I don't know that it's a great idea for the sport if the only way anybody ever scores is to hit a home run. You need more action than that. The game the other night, there were a lot of home runs. There was an incredible amount of action and drama, and if you're going to give me this much drama, I'm all for it. I mean, the other thing that we're seeing, the game's evolving this way, and it's going to continue to evolve this way, is teams used to go into the season, go into the World Series saying, we need big performances and a lot of innings from our starting pitcher.
Yes.
They don't think that anymore, except about the stars. If Justin Verlander throws 138 pitches tonight on extra rest, last start of the season, that wouldn't shock me. But in general, the game is evolving away from that into a starters go through the lineup 2 times kind of deal, and then let's bring in the bullpen parade. And it's never more extreme than in the postseason. It's never going to get to this in the regular season, but this is where we're headed. So just get used to it.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of it, Jay. I got to be honest. I don't like, in fact, the other night, I'd like to hear your opinion, because if I'm Kershaw, I'm not thrilled. I know he didn't pitch his best, but if I'm the manager, I'm giving my guy who got me here the best opportunity, and ends up they go into Maeda, he gives up the 2-run homer, and the domino effect is now you're into your bullpen for the rest of the game. And the fact that they did that earlier in the series has put the bullpen in the position that they were in that game. And if I'm Kershaw, I'm not thrilled that I got pulled in that situation.
Did you watch closely when Dave Roberts went out there? I did.
Yes.
You know what I saw? Clayton was stomping around the mound, and he never looked at Dave Roberts, not once. From the second he popped out of the dugout to the second he took the ball, Clayton never looked at him. And it was telling. Clayton, he's as immersed in the game and as immersed in his team, every aspect of it, as any pitcher alive. And, he knows where he fits in the fabric of that team, how important he is, what's expected of him, what he expects of himself, and he does not expect to get taken out of a game in the 5th inning with the lead. But the Dodgers don't think the way teams traditionally have thought. The games are mapped out in advance by Dave Roberts and that front office, and that was a quick hook in a lot of ways, but Clayton threw 94 pitches in that game and got 14 outs. The previous start, he threw 83 pitches and got 21 outs. So he wasn't sharp. He wasn't himself. He's had 2 nightmarish innings. They're not going to wait around, especially when it's 2-2 and the series is tied and the game's on the line. It does have a ripple effect. There is a price to pay. You're going to see that price tonight because Rich Hill's going to have to stay out there longer than they would prefer. But they've managed these games with a tremendous sense of urgency, and that's just as I've said, this is how the game is evolving.
Jayson Stark's with us here tonight. You're going back to L.A., and then you wonder, the Astros, that game the other night was an epic. They seemed like that was a tough way for the Dodgers to lose that game, especially because you've now beat Jansen, twice, because you had to lean on him extra. So tonight, if the Astros don't win this game tonight, and it sets up that moment, then who would favor for Game 7 if the Astros lose that game tonight?
Well, I'd be back on the Dodgers at that point. Yu Darvish was terrible his last time out, but there's a reason that the Dodgers made that trade, and he's got a chance to dominate the game. Now, Lance McCullers does too, but the Dodgers have seen him now, and I don't see any chance Lance McCullers gets deep into that game. And if it becomes a battle of the bullpens, as fried as those Dodger relievers are, you cannot like the Astros in a game like that. Now, it would be McCullers to Keuchel to Morton to who the heck knows, right? I mean, their best relievers have all been starters. So
that's right.
Anything's possible in a Game 7, but
so much fun.
The crazier the game gets, other than what happened the other night, the more it favors the Dodgers. Got just have more pitchers to go to. I just don't know how they get outs once the starter leaves the game.
Should be fun. A lot of people talking this Astro team's a lot of fun. Like you said, they're very young, and obviously with Altuve, they've got a guy who's kind of, and I think people didn't recognize not only this season, but the seasons this guy has had. He had an unbelievable regular season, too. The fact that he has had a monstrous postseason, the fact that he had an unbelievable MVP type of regular season, too, I think gets lost in the shuffle a little bit.
Well, he has now led his league outright in hits 4 years in a row. All right, let's have a listing of all the other hitters in the history of baseball who have done that. Oh, wait, nobody has. Ty Cobb never did, and Pete Rose never did. Nobody has ever done this. And, if one player in baseball has put himself on the marketability map in the postseason, it's Jose Altuve. How could you not love the guy? But I think, like the Astros, if they win, are in position to have a Cubs-like presence, I think, in the sport because, you can just there's just so many refreshing personalities on that team. They're letting their personality show on and off the field. They're everywhere you look. At post-game, they all come out and talk, and you can see how much they're enjoying the moment. I thought one of the great things about the Cubs last year was that the Cubs didn't just win; they shared it. They shared it with everybody watching, and that's what the Astros have been to me, more than the Dodgers. And I don't think that the sport, the people inside the sport, are necessarily rooting for anybody. But if the Astros were to win, you'd be seeing Jose Altuve and his buddies everywhere, I think.
It'll be Verlander tonight with a chance to wrap this thing up. The great October for Verlander can end tonight with a win over the Dodgers. You can hear the game right here on 97.3 ESPN. We've been talking with longtime baseball writer Jayson Stark here, and we appreciate that time as always. Appreciate it, Jay.
Always fun, guys. Thanks. Happy Halloween.